Introduction to radio systems. Okay, this is my passport. Are you gonna have any electric? I'm guessing.
Oh, no, I'm just
Getting them out. Okay, right. So you could accept.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I think that was good. So, yeah. Wait. Yeah. And then the 3 and 4 is always. Take even 7 and connect these 2 with 2 wooden downs. They wooden downs and they will put down in between you can have these. Oh yeah, they have one. I think that's just like a bit of. And then basically. With the other one. I and then.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Very good.
Very good, man.
Yes.
Nice weather outside.
So.
Is it not nice? It's
Too
hot.
hot.
Too hot. Okay. My name is Manish. I'm a lecturer at the University of York. I teach medical robotics here. Have you heard anything related to this? Or have you ever heard what is medical engineering or robotics? I'm sure you must have heard them separately. But have you heard anything like that clubbing together, medical and robotics? No. Okay, just wanted to check where have you, which schools have you come here from? I learned that you come from different parts of India. So anybody just randomly, I just don't know which areas you've come from, just wanted to know more about your Sheffield, okay.
Leaves.
Leeds, okay.
Reading.
Reading, okay. Anybody comes there? Anyone? London. And from there? Okay. So we have a big group here. Today as you see, we have a robotic arm, which I also given the instructions. So we have our volunteers here. And we also have our student ambassadors who will be helping you making this. We can start with this later on in a few minutes, but we can stop. I just wanted to show you some small presentation, just to give you a background of what we are going to do today and a brief introduction to medical engineering. I came up with this slide, and I know there's less time, so I'll just finish in 10 minutes, and then you can start with this. Just wanted to check, have you heard about this term, biomedical engineering? What do you think it is? Yeah.
Use engineering for medical problems.
Medical problems. What kind of medical problems can we solve from robotics?
Things that the human, like doctors can't physically reach, like let's say neuron issues or something like that.
Neuron issues. Anything else? Anybody from here?
Like surgery, that is not.
Surgeries which can do that's nice. Yeah.
There will be development tools to administer drugs that small areas like human problems.
Right, to learn an audience. Very, very nice. So you already know about that it can be used for surgical applications, for going inside the body, even for having an endoscope which can go inside the body and see inside through a piece of the camera. So there's lots and lots of things which have been developed. And if I can give a small definition to it, I would say biomedical engineering is simply applications of engineering principles for healthcare treatment, diagnosis, monitoring, and after you've monitored, you want to even do therapy. There are robots which are now used for making older people wear shirts because they're in care homes. There's nobody for helping them. So robots are now being used for that. There are also robots for treatment, like a robot for doing ultrasound, for teleoperation in long distance, where there's a remote area and there's less of clinical staff who can help with patients. So robotics has a lot of applications, and obviously health is the first important thing. We all are very healthy people sitting out here. So I can define healthy body with a healthy mind as a happy human. But can we check how healthy we are? Do you think we can check it now? I think we can. I'll do a very simple exercise. I don't know what happened to my slide, but okay. So what I'm gonna do is we'll go with a very simple exercise for 30 seconds. We'll sit upright. We'll just breathe out our lungs. And we'll just empty our lungs, literally. And without forcing ourselves to stop breathing. Okay, we're not asking you to stop breathing. But what we'll do is the first hunger you get naturally to start your breathing again. We'll only wait until then. But do not force yourself to stop breathing, okay? We'll just breathe in, we'll breathe out, we'll hold our breath for a few seconds until naturally we want to breathe again. And then we naturally continue breathing. What we want to check is how long we can naturally, without any force, stop ourselves from breathing. And I'll set up a timer here. And the moment somebody starts breathing back again, they can raise their hand just to let everybody else know that we have started breathing again. Okay. And I will also do this along with you. How how long do you think you can hold your breath? For a minute? I have a brave man here. I'll definitely look forward to see that. Anybody else? 10 seconds, 30 seconds. Okay, I'll keep 1 minute. So let's sit upright. We'll do quickly. We'll just breathe out. Okay. Ready? Start. So there is somebody who has gone beyond 30 seconds. Are you still on it? Okay. So there's somebody who got 40 seconds. Almost 45 seconds. Cool. So I would clap for you because you managed to stay there for 1 minute. So what he said, he actually did that. So why did we do this exercise? Good. Just wanted to show you that this is an indication of how healthy we are. So we roughly in the room were somewhere between 20 to 20 seconds until 1 minute. Generally, the time by which we can pause ourselves is a showcase of how much energy we have, how much blood oxygen we have in our body. And it's a research that if your body oxygen is less than, so if you had less than 30 seconds of time for which you waited, and then you started breathing again, that is a show that your body oxygen level is slightly lower. But anything between 30 and 50 seconds shows a good natural body oxygen, which is a natural sign of being healthy. How can you see that? That there's a lot of desire to exercise when you have high body oxygen, but you won't feel very strong when your body oxygen level is less. Also, the craving for sugar and junk foods is present high in people who are having less body oxygen. So it's an indication of a lifestyle. Our sleeping patterns are quite poor. We want to sleep more than 7 hours just to recover from our daily tiredness. That's also one of the areas for improvement. So all of this is just a natural showcase of how healthy we are. And we can test it by simple exercise. That's why people go for now yoga lessons, gym training. Why? Because they want to get healthy. Now, these days, we are almost 8 billion people on Earth. With the way we are continuing, we can go until 14 billion almost by 2100. Unless and until some untoward event happens, like a natural calamity or a war, never know. But we can have a variations of population which the world might see in future. But the striking thing is when I was almost, if I say in 2000, the world population was somewhere around 6 billion. And when I was, you are in year 12, right? So when I was in my year 12, the world population was somewhere around 2 billion or so, 2.5 billion. So in less than 15 years now, 20 years, in less than 20 years, it's drastically gone up. And that will continue to increase. So that's where the world is getting not a good place to live because there's more competition, more fighting for unnecessary things. So there's a lot of good things which have happened around the world. There's better living conditions, economic development has happened. There's a lot of skilled people. You people are very skilled people who are connected by Facebook, Instagram, and you name anything. But you have negative forces which are gonna disrupt the world, and there's not a hidden fact. But let's look at some of the global health statistics about infections. We heard about coronavirus, but coronavirus was just one tip of the iceberg. There were immense amount of viruses which affected the world. It's just that coronavirus became big because its impact was huge. But right from 1998, we have been attacked by different viruses. And those set of viruses have not affected small areas, all the areas around the world. Huge amount of impact. If you look at communicable diseases, people don't talk about that anymore. We don't consider that as a huge problem because malaria, cholera, typhoid, these are kind of controlled thing because people know how to control them. Better hygiene, cleanliness. Those are the areas, vaccination. World Health Organization themselves says that there are total 38 countries which have been certified as malaria free. 13.6 million people have been saved by retroviral therapy for HIV. So HIV is something like people don't care much about them. There's a drug about it. And similarly, you have for tuberculosis for the children who are by 2018, 9 out of 10 children were fully vaccinated. So we don't have problems like that. But the world has problems with non-communicable diseases, which are lifestyle-driven diseases. And that was a small hint which we did the exercise we did some time back. How come? Because there's rising risk of death from heart diseases, stroke, cancer, even chronic respiratory diseases and diabetes. And from there, you can imagine from this graph, natural disasters don't kill that much to compare to what cardiovascular disease or cancer do. Or even the fact that you have even suicidal attempts is not very drastically killing. There's less in numbers. And there was one thing which I came across. Transport injuries. Even that is less in comparison to how lifestyles have dictated the world population. So, in totality, if I have to summarize everything, I would say for future sustainable growth, we need to have better understanding of healthcare, engineering principles, basic sciences, by and parallelly deal with economic constraints, marketing strategies, and political situations. When we are able to tackle everything, then we are called as innovators because we have addressed all the problems. And sustainable development is about tackling all these things. Health is just one part of it. You can imagine health has so many things: road traffic accidents, sexual and reproductive health care, universal health coverage, sanitations, and so on. So many things we have to address. Just to give you one liner takeaway, according to the report of World Economic Forum, non-communicable diseases between now and 2030 are expected to cost 5 times the money that was lost in 2008 financial crisis. So out of 8 billion, 5 billion don't even have access to safe surgical care and anesthesia. That is the situation of a world which is claiming to be having a lot of technological advancements. Now, from serious point, let's look at what fantasy has taught us. From movies, we learn about robots. This is something in 1966, much before even you were born. Even I was not born at that time when this kind of movie came. And this, you can see that this spaceship kind of model, which is going through an injection into a patient and trying to look inside the body. Looks funny now, but this was a futuristic idea at that time. And there's lots and lots of movies which have now come up to inspire people into robotics and their medical applications. Okay, so to summarize, that's what I would say. Any kind of engineering or robotic engineering you would like to do will require a lot of areas of expertise in medicine, engineering, basic sciences, and learning about imaging. And when you apply it across in biomedical engineering, you can choose any area of expertise or application. Medical device development, rehabilitation, bioinformatics, biotechnology, medical and biological diagnosis, and imaging. And today, we're just going to touch upon small part. We're just trying to develop a basic model of a robot, which can be controlled via hydraulic syringes. No control by electronics, but by manual control. So I hope it inspires you to get into it. And I would request my volunteers to help you, and you can start building it now. But if you have any questions before you do that, I'm happy to answer them. Okay, so thank you.